beginnings for a couple of coaches. Look, these coaches were already on a great journey, but now they step in. Hi there, folks. My name's Darren Sutton. This is Hunter Pence. And on Perfect Game College Baseball, we'll get a chance to talk with two coaches that have stepped into really great opportunities. Gregg Willis is the head coach of Grand Canyon. He thought he was going to be the recruiting coordinator at Ohio State. He came back to where he worked so long at GCU. And Brian Hamm and the intelligence and the history, the tree of those that are developing and touching the face of baseball. He's the brand new head coach of Yale. Hunter, this is going to be a fun show.
Absolutely. Two extraordinarily successful head coaches, and they've just done great stuff everywhere they've been. I'm excited to get to learn from them, hear about their new adventure and how they're going to take on this path moving forward. But just great minds, great success, great leadership, and I'm excited to learn from them myself.
One more thing on Hamm before we go to break. It's kind of in specifics, it's kind of that ability for him to be way ahead of the curve at a smaller college like Amherst or at Eastern Connecticut State, where kind of quietly, without the world watching, he's sending guys off to pro ball. John D'Angelo, who's an MLB VP. He's sending a gentleman off, Will Lawton, who's a baseball ops guy with the Pirates. He's got young women that are out there in Major League front offices. All under Brian Hamm's watch. I know you're excited to geek out on kind of the tech and analytics.
Yeah, it's gonna require a lot longer conversation, but they were doing analytics before we heard about analytics. They were doing biomechanics before anybody was even listening to it, before we had the slow motion cameras. So just way ahead of the mind, thought leader, and on a different wavelength, and I'm excited to listen and hear for what he has to say and teach us.
It's Yale, it's Grand Canyon, and it's Perfect Game College Baseball. Let's get it going right now. This is exciting times for coaches that are really on the move up the ranks, and Brian Hamm is the brand new head coach of Yale. Brian, thanks for spending time with us now. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
So you go and you win a national title last year at Eastern Connecticut State. The Yale opportunity presents itself. Kind of bridge the gap for me as to why you were pulled to take on this job at the D1 level at Yale.
Absolutely. I've been really fortunate to have some outstanding coaching opportunities. I was at Amherst for 13 years, an outstanding institution, and has a ton of baseball history. Eastern, we've now won 5 national championships there. So when Yale presented itself, the opportunity to coach at Division I level at a place that combines the academic and intellectual integrity of the institution with all the success that we've had athletically, and then the history of baseball, was a no-brainer.
Yeah, Brian, and success you have had in the coaching department, and like you said, National Coach of the Year, D3Baseball.com, 49-3 record, just amazing, immaculate. And Darren knows this, that I am a fan of principles, of the crazy successful people, and I'm very excited for your Yale journey, but I'd be really upset if I didn't get to ask you, what are some of your core principles to leading and coaching? Because everyone that you've worked with just speaks so highly of how you not only develop winning teams, but winning people outside of baseball.
Well, I appreciate you asking that question. I would say 2 things. The first, I've been really fortunate to have the opportunity to work with amazing, incredibly intelligent, hardworking people. Whether that was my time at Middlebury and being involved with that athletics department and the success that they had there, to the opportunity to learn and coach with Bill Thurston, a legend, especially in all that he did with the biomechanics of pitching and working with Dr. James Andrews, to then being at Eastern and now following John Stuper's big shoes to fill at Yale. I've been fortunate to work with and learn from outstanding coaches. And then my philosophy in terms of the coaching staffs that we try to assemble and also the players that we recruit, 3 core principles. 1, to work and be around good people. Secondly, that they know how to compete. And thirdly, that they care. They care about who they are. They care about the things they're associated with in life. And obviously, they care about winning in baseball.
Okay, Brian, you got fireworks going off here. You can't just jump through Hall of Fame Bill Thurston biomechanics of pitching, like it's a nonchalant nothing, because the biomechanics of pitching is one of the biggest topics of all time. And the fact that y'all were onto that so long ago in your career, can you speak to me about what you learned from Bill Thurston, the biomechanics of pitching, and how it's evolved? Has it changed at all from then to now? Because I do feel like it's ever evolving, in my opinion, but I like to learn about a lot of these things that help get the most out and develop your pitchers.
Certainly. I would say I've learned so many things from Bill. I mean, Bill produced 3 general managers of major league teams in Ben Cherington, Dan Duquette, and Neil Huntington, all GMs at the same time, which, from a little school like Amherst College has 1,700 students, to produce 3 GMs is really impressive and says a lot about Coach Thurston. But the thing that I learned about him the most was the ability to pay attention in the moment and to identify different aspects of the pitching motion that then lead to others in a kinetic chain. He's in his late 80s now and had been coaching for 42 years when I finally got to him. And I went to Amherst because I wanted to learn from him and to understand how he started to learn about pitching when, well before we had all this technology that put the throwing motion in slow motion. So he was able to identify different traits of a pitcher in real time. And that's what I was able to learn from him, because it's really important that you're able to interact with the pitcher in the moment to bring awareness to what his body is doing for him so that he can make those adjustments, not only in practice, but to replicate them in the mound when we're not there.
I guess I'll ask just one question, because I'm robbing from Hunter if I ask too many, and I'm loving this conversation as well. You have an incredible tree already as a young coach. You have those that have come under your watch, John D'Angelo, who we work with a lot with Major League Baseball, and I love the words of Jared Banner, who shared, as he helps with the Cubs and their player development world. You prepared him for his first interview, and as a matter of fact, he makes it clear, I've asked him multiple times to leave the college ranks, and he won't come to the professional ranks. How proud are you of that tree of those that are successful that you have coached and guided? And number 2, how committed are you to these college ranks? If people keep begging you stay, though.
I appreciate that. Again, going back to Bill Thurston, one of the things that I learned in terms of recommending players, not only to major league organizations to continue playing, but then also now for players to go on to front office and baseball operations, is that you always have to keep your integrity in terms of you recommend that they need to be qualified. And you mentioned 2 of many players that I've been able to coach and then have gone on and had a tremendous success. And the reason why they've had success in professional baseball is because of their knowledge of the game, their work ethic, and the quality of people that they are. So I'm incredibly proud of that. But the thing that I appreciate the most is that relationship, and to see them grow and impact the game at the level that they have. And then to continue my relationship on a professional level, in addition to being so close with them as friends on a personal level. That's been a special treat to me. And that's ultimately why I've stayed in the college game, because we have the opportunity to access these players as they're 17 and 18 years old and watch their maturation into becoming adults, and then ultimately have the opportunity to go on to a professional career. And you asked at the start, why Yale? Well, ultimately, at the end of the day, it's the access that they have when they graduate to do whatever they want in whatever field that they want. And oftentimes that's baseball. John D'Angelo, the impact that he has on the game, not only in Major League Baseball, but on a national and international level. Jared Banner, and you go down the list. My first 2 captains being John D'Angelo and Will Lawton. Will Lawton is now with the Pirates working under Ben. And then in the analytics, and that's one of the things that I'm most proud of, is that when I was at Amherst, I started an analytics club that has spawned. There are at least a dozen people now in the game within analytics at the highest level that started within this analytics group before analytics was really a thing, that I'm really proud of.
Wow, Brian, and that's amazing that y'all were way ahead of the game on biomechanics and doing it in real time before the slow cameras. You were doing the analytics before analytics kind of has burst onto the scene with kind of the Astros and what they've been able to accomplish in the major league level. Now everyone's got analysts and data mining, like the human sport of baseball. I do think that it's a tremendous responsibility to be a head coach at a college in general, because you're shaping the young minds that are the future beyond baseball. Yale's going to be an unbelievable scholarship for anyone that's able to graduate from there. So, like, I understand that this is a huge impact, Brian, and it's in great hands. And this is where I'm so excited about more of like your leadership skills. Than even though I know that you're way ahead of the game in the baseball secrets. But getting a sports management degree and taking that into being at the helm of leading a university and being a head coach, would you say, like, because I think coaching and playing are different skills, and not but to coach properly and to lead properly requires certain things. Can I ask you a little bit about what you took from getting a sports management degree? And obviously you've been around really good people. How has that kind of led you to be as successful as you are, and what would you pass that on to anyone that would be listening to this that they could take and enhance their life?
Certainly, I would say it was the access. UMass Sport Management Program, which I was fortunate to attend, is nationally renowned because it was one of the first, but it also was able to attract incredibly talented, successful people from the business world coming back to it, and then that network moving forward. So it was the access for me to all these wonderful people, as I mentioned, that I learned from. And at the end of the day, Hunter, to me, leadership is so much beyond what a degree or a diploma says about you, and it comes down to your heart and your passion. I mentioned how important it is for me to associate with people who understand what it means to compete and work hard, and also to care. And the thing that I learned is actually quite the opposite of what I learned at UMass in the sport management program. But ultimately, what I learned about leadership and coaching, interacting with people, which is that's exactly what you're doing, right? Is that you're communicating and supporting and caring for people. And it comes down to how much you love what you do and to love the people that you work with, in that you show them that. And so in some ways, yeah, I was really excited to have access to all this information that I got through the sport management program and my master's degree. But it always comes back to how good am I able to relate to the people that I'm working with, whether it's my coaching staff or my players, and never forget that it's about interacting with people at the end of the day.
Brian, that is tremendous. That is beautiful and spot on for my journey. The heart, the passion, the relationships is the thing that's everlasting as we go through this. And you mentioned one of your core principles. Obviously, I'm keeping track with this. Good people, and you've been around a lot of good people, know how to compete and care. To me, know how to compete. Is this something that you recruit, you look for? Is there something specific or something that is teachable? Because that's kind of, to me, that's a gray area. It's like how I would like to learn more about know how to compete in that principle and specifically.
Well, that's probably the $1 million question in any organization, right? Is can you cultivate that, or do you need to identify it and bring those people into your program and ultimately get the ones who don't do that, outside of the program or off the bus, to speak in metaphors. But, one of the things that we try to do in terms of competition, which is something that I actually learned from watching you and what you were phenomenal as a player, is the ability to have presence and be aware. And ultimately in our game, as you know, that's what the game is all about, right? So, for example, as a hitter, you've got to be able to figure out how to get to point of contact on time. Well, you can't do that if you're not present or you're not aware. And ultimately, that's what it comes down to, being a good competitor, right? Which is, do you have the ability and the discipline to be able to pay attention, to have presence in the moment? And if you can do that, then ultimately at the end of the day, you're probably going to be a really good competitor, because that's very difficult to do. And so the challenge for us is, how do we find ways in which we can develop players to be present in the moment, and then ultimately to help them to have awareness of what they are doing. And that's not just mechanically, but that's just in life, in terms of, for our guys, because, the academic challenge and rigor are so difficult here. It's okay, well then can we teach them about being present and being aware in the classroom? That's one of the things that we did really well at Eastern, that then ultimately trickled back down into how they performed on the field. So yeah, I think there are aspects of being competitive that you can develop. But at the end of the day, again, going back to the caring piece. I think the caring piece is in your heart. It's in your gut. That's what you really got to look for in recruiting, again, coaches or players into your program that I think is probably more difficult to cultivate. I think if you care about it yourself, like the way that you competed, right, and people are around you when they're also in the organization, they see how passionate, how much you care. I think that in some ways, yes, that can rub off on people and become a flywheel within an organization. But at the end of the day, there's got to be something at their core and their foundation that they have prior to coming to your organization.
When you bring this kind of preparation with you to a program like Yale, I know your wisdom. It's not to immediately typecast a player because I'm sure you feel like you have some clay to work with as well. That being said, Brian, share a couple of names of guys you're excited to work with that maybe have established themselves a little bit that will be your lieutenants, if you understand what I'm saying there. Mention a couple of names you're excited to work with into the fall and into the spring, understanding many will seize the opportunity, but mention a few key guys.
Certainly. Well, first of all, I'd have to tip my cap to our coaching staff, both past and John Stuper, and then the present one that we brought in. We retained Corey Keene, our hitting coach, outstanding hitting coach, came from Quinnipiac, which they're really known for what they do on an offensive level. My recruiting coordinator and pitching coach, who is one of the best pitching coaches that I've ever come across in the game, professional and at the college level. Chris Wojcik, who was our pitching coach at Eastern and helped build the nucleus of the players that we have in the program. John Masagno, our 3-year captain, All-American Eastern, is going to be our volunteer coach. And then our baseball operations guy is phenomenal as well. So we're really excited about that. In terms of our players, our captain, one of the cool things, you guys will love this, at Yale, every team only has one captain, and that captain is voted for by every player and coach having one vote. So you look at any team at Yale in the history of our athletics department, they've always had one captain. I'll tell you what, that person who becomes captain of your program's got to be an impressive person character-wise. And so that's Carson Schwank, who we're really excited about this year to lead the team. I'd say the other player that comes to mind that I've gotten to know through the summer, I've tried to do my best to do it, I've only been here for a month, is Jimmy Chatfield, a player who plays with passion and love for the game and also deeply cares about winning. And that's the great thing about a place at Yale is, if you're going to get somebody that gets into this place, as difficult as it is, they're going to care about winning, and they're going to understand what it takes to compete. And so those two guys come to my mind right out of the gate. Jimmy's got the ability to be a really two-way guy, and both of those guys, from a character perspective in terms of how they play the game, embody what we're about at Yale. Now, apparently we don't pay the light bill at Yale, or at least I haven't figured out how to keep the lights on here.
That's
that'll
great.
go show you how much
I'm not editing that out.
Yeah.
I am not editing that out, Brian.
So that'll give you appreciation. I've been here now for 4 weeks at Yale, and I've probably spent about 2 of them in this office because I've been on the road so much recruiting. So that's a testament, proof that I haven't spent a lot of time in this office. Or maybe it's Babe Ruth and the former president. A picture there with the two famous one of the two exchanging greetings at home plate at Yale Field. Really historic field is another reason why this is such an amazing place. The history here of the people who've walked on our field. We just renovated it, put a ton of money into it, and it's an amazing facility to play in, and a very historic one at that.
Brian, we're so excited for you, my friend, and you've enlightened both of us. I knew Hunter would geek out in the conversation. It's been an honor. Best of luck. We'll invite ourselves back again. We really appreciate it.
Hey, how about you guys just come to New Haven? You get to see an awesome campus, awesome facility, and I'll treat you to some New Haven people when you're here.
Heck yeah. I got way more questions for you. This wasn't enough time. I need more data analytics. I got lots of questions.
Anytime.
But great stuff, Brian. Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure. It means a lot to me. Thank you very much.
You're watching Perfect Game College Baseball on Perfect Game TV. From Yale to Grand Canyon, from Northeast to beautiful Arizona, and a wonderful opportunity for a man who's got a long time in this game, with some good mentors too. I'm excited to to chat with the head coach of Grand Canyon, Gregg Willis. We had a couple of weeks ago Andy Stankiewicz, who helped to build this program with Gregg right by his side, who's now gone on to USC. Gregg, thanks for spending time with us now. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Love to know kind of the development of understanding that Andy was going to go, and they managed to grab his heart, and then the development of you stepping into the program. Take us behind the scenes a little bit and how excited you are as well.
Well, first of all, I am really, really excited to be back home in Phoenix. It was a crazy summer. Actually, left for Columbus, Ohio to take the recruiting coordinator position at Ohio State University and drove across the country. When I took the job, drove straight from Phoenix to Cleveland, was hit the ground running recruiting for Ohio State, and the AD from Grand Canyon, Jamie Boggs, called me, 2 weeks into the job to say, hey, we want you to come back and interview. So it was quite an adventurous couple weeks, but it ended so great for me and my family that I got to come back to Grand Canyon and be the head coach. So,
well Gregg, well-deserved and definitely exciting times at Grand Canyon. Incredible success you and Stankiewicz have had for many years. Obviously, your recruiting is renowned. But I want to talk a little bit about a couple of the coaches that you've signed on. Nathan Bannister, your pitching coach. Can you talk a little bit about that relationship and how excited you are to be working with him?
Yeah, Nathan has been amazing. So I met him. He's a Phoenix kid, went to Liberty High School, which is the West Phoenix, which is a big recruiting niche for us, is the West Valley. A lot of good players come out of there. Then he pitched at the University of Arizona. I was a coach at Grand Canyon, watched him compete in Omaha. Just was like, this guy was just a bulldog. He was someone that you remembered because of how, what a competitor that he was. He kind of led the team to Omaha, I believe, in 2016. And then he's good friends with some of my former players at Grand Canyon. So he, in the off seasons, would come and work some camps for us. And I saw how hands-on he was with pitching development. Sometimes you show up at a prospect camp or a pitching camp, and you're not always working with elite talent there. But I just noticed that this guy has his hands on everyone, whether they were a JV player, a freshman player, or a prospect that we wanted to possibly recruit. He was just working really hard with all of them, trying to get the best out of them. So that stood out in my mind, and I knew that if I got a head job one day, he was going to be someone that I would seriously consider hiring, and I got fortunate to bring him over from the Mariners. So
that is amazing, and yeah, you got to love that enthusiasm and energy to work and help everyone. A little bit wanted to ask about, obviously, the amazing summer for one of my favorite opponents, Jack Wilson's son, Jacob Wilson. Obviously getting to play for Team USA, the success he had going to the Netherlands, and then bringing on Jack Wilson to GCU family to coach as well. Can you talk a little bit about that combo and how that came together?
Yeah, really exciting stuff. Obviously, so proud of Jacob and what he did, what he's done really for 2 years for us, in a Grand Canyon uniform, and then got to go out and go to the trials for USA, and that was an exciting thing. And then, he goes out and just kills it out there. I believe he led the best hitters in the country. I think he led in 9 offensive categories and made the team, and he earned every bit of it and showed, why he's one of the best in the country. So just so proud of him and the work he's done, the player he is, and the person that he is. He's just so humble through this whole process of really becoming an elite player in the whole country. And then Jack, obviously we recruited Jacob. I developed a relationship with Jack, and I knew Jack's passion for coaching, player development, and he had been talking to me for a long time that his dream was to coach college baseball. So when Coach Stankiewicz left for USC and I had the opportunity to interview, he was the only name I thought of, because Coach Stankiewicz is such an incredible infield coach, hitting coach, just overall coach, and has such a great background in professional baseball and big league experience that I didn't want to take a step backwards in that area. And I knew that Jack was one, wanted to do it, and two, can kind of help us keep moving forward in those areas that I felt that Coach Stankiewicz brought so much to the table with, with that. And I knew it made it easy for me to recruit infielders because I basically just had to look at how they hit because I knew get them here and coach is going to make them better. And I wanted that to continue that. And I know Jack's going to be the same way. If we can find guys, that can play, Jack's going to make them better on the dirt. So it was an easy one, and I'm fortunate that he wanted to do it. I feel really fortunate that he wanted to do this, and he's really excited about it. His family moved to Phoenix, I think the first of the month, so they're ready to go in the desert. So.
Mm-hmm. So when you win 80 games the last 2 years, and you and Andy and your staff win those 80 games, you take down a lot of high-level Division I teams. I called one of them on the Pac-12 network when you guys hammered Arizona and Tucson, right? So what goes into that? How do you build, and I'm careful how I say this because you guys, people are trying to now build a Grand Canyon, but it's always comparable to Gonzaga in basketball, right? It's always a fair comp.
Sure.
That's what you're trying to build, and you're building it. I mean, you're right there. What goes into that? Recruiting. You've recruited these players. What do you sell them on? What goes into that?
Well, thank you. First of all, that's high praise. That's what we set out to do. I think that's what every mid-major sets out to do. We're looking at programs like Gonzaga basketball. When we kind of started this thing, it was Boise State football that was doing it at a level that no other really mid-major was doing it as well. And yeah, it's just been a progression. It's been a step process, and it started back in 2014 when I took the job with Coach Stankiewicz, and he just had a vision to keep moving it forward and keep recruiting elite players. And at first, we didn't have the facilities we had now, but we had the player development in place. So we just wanted to find, gritty kids that wanted to work and wanted to get better and had a dream to play professional baseball. And being in Phoenix with so much exposure to the scouting community, we were able to do well in the draft early on and win some games and show that we can be competitive at the Division I level. And then it just kept moving from there where we had access, after a 3-4 year cycle, we kind of showed that we can do this at the Division I level and we can get players exposure to the professional scouting community. And then we had access to better players, and it just snowballed from there to where we brought in that, Jacobs class. Those are a lot of good players that are all now juniors. So when we had that momentum that was built, and then it was easier to kind of get some transfers in that were older and ready to go. So it's been a progression, but it's been so much fun. And now the challenge is to keep going forward because we've been really, really good to this point, and we've made back-to-back regionals. But we don't want to stop there. We want to take the next step now, and that's even going to be more difficult to win a regional, get into win a regional game, win a regional, get to a super. That's kind of the next challenge that we're setting forth on, and it's going to be a big challenge. But we're excited about it. So. You've
been impacted by someone who we all think a lot of in the college baseball community, and that's Dave Serrano. He wrapped his time last year. I'm sure there are great things in his encore career, but more than 500 wins. He had a 32-win season at Northridge last year. You were with him as his understudy, as his right-hand man at multiple stops. Introduce us to Dave from your eyes, who he is to you and how he impacted you.
Yeah, well, I owe him everything. I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be coaching if it wasn't for him. I was driving home to Chatsworth, California after I graduated or after I was done with my eligibility, and luckily he called and asked me if I wanted to come back and join the UC Irvine program in kind of a back then it was like a student assistant role, and I said yes, please. I didn't know what the heck I was going to do. I was driving home and made a quick U-turn and started working camps. So I owe him everything for giving me the opportunity to get my foot in the door way back in, I think, the summer of 2005. And then, just like you talked about Gonzaga basketball, I got a front row seat to some really winning mid-majors. UC Irvine, we went to Omaha in 07, and then I was fortunate enough that I got to go to Cal State Fullerton with Coach Serrano and see what that's the Gonzaga basketball of the college baseball world. So I got a front row seat to that and see kind of what it takes for a mid-major to compete at a high level. And we're not there yet. We haven't accomplished nearly what those programs have, but we definitely are trying to, and we're trying to build it exactly in that model.
Well, great. I think it's been pretty impressive. As a college player, my 2 years, I never got to even go to a regional. We won 39 games and just missed that cut. Making it to a regional is special. It's a really successful season, and obviously, I know you're looking to leverage even further. But you mentioned a couple things that I thought was very interesting. You mentioned, with Bannister, kind of a bulldog mentality. And you mentioned recruiting, and you're expert recruiting, and recruiting. And I heard we look for gritty players that want to work. So I kind of just, because I love hearing about culture, and I can kind of see a thread here. Is there something with like the bulldog and the gritty, and is that part of a culture that you're looking to build? And can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely there is, and I think it is part of when you're at a mid-major, the guys who want to come play for you that are good enough to play anywhere else, they kind of have that built-in mentality, right? Because if you don't have that like chip on your shoulder, kind of me against the world attitude, you're not going to, and you're good enough, you're not going to come to the mid-major. You're going to go to the big established Power 5 already. So it's a bit of a built-in, I guess, advantage, even though you might not think of it, when we can find a player talented enough to play anywhere and they still want to choose Grand Canyon. Usually they have a little bit something about them that suggests that they're pretty gritty to pass up maybe the Power 5 opportunity, or they just, they believe in the school and the coaching staff. There's a lot that goes into it. So I think, some could look at it like, hey, it's a mid-major, it's a disadvantage, but the advantage is when you get the guy that could play anywhere in the country and he wants to come play for you, they usually they're doing it for a reason. They're not caught up in maybe the thrills of a college football Saturday, which are fun, right? But we don't have that. So if you choose us, you might be passing up Saturdays going to watch your team play football in the fall, and you're going to be on the field instead playing baseball on those Saturday mornings. So I think there's something to that about what we do at the mid-major level.
Incredible stuff. Great insights. I want to ask you about your starting staff. You had 3 players drafted, 3 pitchers drafted, A's, Cubs, and the A's. A's came in and got a couple of your pitchers. Kudos to them. But Conor, Markle, Carter Young, and is it Daniel Avidia? Is that how we say his last name? Say his last name for me.
Yes. Yep.
So
Danny Avidia.
So do all 3 of those returned? Are they coming back to be a part of your program? And tell me about the role that those 3, if they all return, have in the upcoming starting rotation.
Yeah, well, Danny and Conor and CY, Danny shut down, but Danny was a freshman last year, and he was freshman pitcher of the year, set our strikeout record as a freshman. And then so he's back, and he would kind of project as our Friday night starter. He earned that role last year. You would think that he's going to fill into that role. And then Conor, left-handed pitcher, went out to the Cape and had an incredible summer. I think 26 innings in the Cape, gave up 13 hits. So we're excited about him coming back. CY had an incredible summer. You mentioned Coach Serrano. CY as a Coach Serrano has made a career helping pitchers like CY that are just kind of bulldogs on the mound that compete, that have 3 pitches for strikes and really can use their changeup and breaking ball in any count. So he went out to Alaska with Coach Serrano. I think went 25 innings, gave up 8 hits and 1 run. So really, really excited about him coming back and to see the development that he's made from his sophomore to his junior year. Those 3 guys are definitely going to be a huge part of it. What roles that they're in, we'll find out. But all 3 of them are going to be a really, really big part of the returning staff.
I'll edit this out if you get mad at me asking you this question. But in your mind, and I have a total agenda why I'm asking this. In your mind, is Conor Markle a future pro?
Yeah, I think he is. I think here's what he did. He's his best when he pitches against the best. So if you look at his outings last year, there's so much room for growth with what he did. But against Stanford, who I thought was the best team we played all year, he had a phenomenal outing. I don't know exactly, but I know he carried us to the win. It was a 2-1 ball game, and I think he pitched 6 or 7 innings. And Then he pitched against U of A, another regional team, and had his best. So his two best outings of the year were against Pac-12 lineups, and I think there's something to that. Then he goes out to the Cape and does it against the best competition in the country. So I do think he's a future pro, and I think that he's only scratched the surface consistency-wise of what he can do, and durability-wise. So if you look at what happened between his freshman year, where he was dominant out of the bullpen for us, then he transitioned to a starter. And I think the only knock that you could sound him was that after about 3-4 innings, he started to get tired and his stuff fell off. So I think now he's committed to training and in the weight room. He already on his own. He came home from the Cape. He had thrown enough innings and got with our strength guys. And he didn't rest. He's not kicking his feet up at a lake somewhere. He's in the weight room 5 days a week right now with our training staff getting after it, because he knows that if he can extend his stuff that he brings to the beginning of the game, and that can go week to week from 3-4 great innings to 6-7 great innings, he's going to put himself in a great spot for the draft. And he opened some eyes out in Cape Cod. So it's just a matter of the consistent durability, lengthening out the innings that he throws. But yes, I think he's going to be a great pro.
You make me feel so good. Right before COVID struck in 2020, I went and saw Notre Dame prep play, and I reported back to my daughter, who is a friend of some folks around that program. There's one player on that field that can play. I mean, I'm not going to tell you who they were playing. It doesn't matter. There's one player, and it's Conor.
Right.
And you could just see it back then, and I'm thrilled for his development. So thank you for the self-serving question I asked, but I appreciate it. And he stood out back then. It's lopes up. That's how we do it, right? Lopes up like this?
Yeah, lopes up. Yep. And Conor has backed up your daughter can be proud, because he's backed that up, and he's only going to get better too.
All right, my friend.
He's only
Greg,
getting better.
congratulations on the gig, man, and coming back from Ohio and settling back in here in Arizona. We're honored to have you back home, and best of luck with the whole fall and the upcoming season.
Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
I want to thank Greg for joining us, and also Brian Hamm, the brand new head coach at Yale. Two great stories. And, of course, my co-host, Hunter Pence. You can find us here each and every week on Perfect Game, College Baseball. See you soon.